getting people to the polls? What else are the goals?
I think that you need to step back a little bit further from that. The thing that brought these people together in February and April and September of last year, and again in March and April of this year, were three core values: fiscal responsibility, constitutionally limited government, and free markets. And we agree, I think every one of us at this table agrees on that. And then at the local level, we, at our organization, Tea Party Patriots, we encourage local groups to do what works best for them. So they might expand further, but we all agree on those three principles.
Okay.
And
there is also something else that I know, because I started the 912 Project, but Yvonne, you have taken that, and I don't have anything really to do with the 912 Project anymore. But there's also a sense that I think from people that it's not about politics. And the left keeps trying to make this about Republicans and everything else. Now, you're endorsing...
yeah, our Lieutenant Governor, our Tea Parties in Tennessee have endorsed Lieutenant Governor Ron Ramsey out of 3 gubernatorial candidates that are on the conservative side.
And I know Freedom Works, you guys were instrumental with getting Mike Lee and a Republican ejected.
Yeah. We've gotten very involved in some Republican primaries, replacing what I consider establishment, go-along, troublesome politicians with a new generation.
And would you say, Yvonne, that it is, what is the attitude towards parties?
Well, we have a lot of groups locally, and you and I have discussed this, that are getting in bed with some parties, but as a whole, we consider ourselves a nonpartisan organization. With that said, we have groups across the country that are doing many great things, working for Republican candidates to get them and endorsing, which is another thing that you and I have discussed, is that as a whole, on a national front rather, we're not saying that we're endorsing candidates, but local groups are.
Right.
So.
Go ahead.
In Tea Party Patriots, our local coordinators, we're a bottom-up grassroots organization. They decided 97% that we will not endorse candidates nationally. And
what is the percentage for you guys? Because that's pretty much the... I think everybody here is a bottom-up, right? There's you're going to have a local chapter that might do something, you're like, that's insane.
We don't take any stand without running it by the local coordinators. So we meet once a week, every single week, and sometimes more.
How does Freedom Works work?
Well, we sort of work on the trader principle because we have volunteers all across the country. And by the way, some of them are Tea Party Patriots, some of them are with you, some are 912ers, and they're in multiple groups. And the way to think about how organizations like mine, and frankly all of these organizations, we have to be of service to these activists. We have to figure out what they want and help them do that. Otherwise, we're not adding value. And I think all of these relationships and this decentralized movement that we call the Tea Party, you're talking about thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of leaders across the country. And we come together based on the trader principle. Are we both adding value? Are we both helping each other get more done than we could have done by ourselves?
Sure.
And that's a volunteer relationship, and you have to respect that. And you have to, and one of the rules for the Tea Party movement, I think, is so important, is you stick to your values, even when it's inconvenient. You do your work, whatever you think you're best at, whatever value you think you can add, and then you don't take credit for other people's work. And that's why this thing has gotten so big and so powerful, and why it so frustrates the left. This is a big, massive, decentralized, I call it beautiful chaos. And that's not a problem, that's power.
Well, it is the free market.
Absolutely.
It is the free market.
Yeah.
And once people start to, once you start taking credit for somebody else, or you start trying to micromanage and not just reaching out to the other and saying, hey, you know what, you guys are really good at that, and we'll support you, you support us, and you're doing the same thing we're doing, but that's great, we can all be together, and or whatever. Once you lose that, then you don't have the free market anymore.
Exactly. And one of the things Matt and I were discussing was some of these are like really great problems to have as far as their growing pains. You know, we're building. The 9/12 and you had me on at the March anniversary show, and that was a 1-year anniversary. When you think of it, 1 year. So a year and a half later, you know, we have some issues, but it's just growing.
I was thinking this morning that the 9/12 project, the Tea Party movement came from what's-his-face, Santelli at CNBC,
Right.
Rick Santelli at CNBC, but he doesn't have anything to do with it. I started the 9/12 project, and I don't have anything to do with it. And what's great is the 9/12 project, you picked 9/12 to do the big rally in Washington, D.C., which is probably the iconic moment. I get blamed for it. I didn't have anything to do with it. Even the 9/12 project didn't have anything to do with it. You guys were the ones that organized it, but everybody came.
Right.
It was a 9/12 volunteer that suggested to us. We said we want to do September. He's like, hey, let's do 9/12.
And I volunteered to help out and organize because I'm kind of weird and I like to organize. You can call me community organizer. So they we worked out where I was a co-coordinator for the entire event, even though I was from a different organization. And the 9/12 Project was one of the sponsors of the event.
We could talk about that as a model for how to tap into this power without stepping on people's toes and sort of respecting their right to do what they are most comfortable with. We organized this event, and FreedomWorks had a part, and we built this massive coalition of groups that I can name. And by the way, there's about 1,000 groups that I can't name that made it work that day. And we thought we'd get 100,000 people. We were very optimistic about that, and we thought it was almost an arrogant assumption that we could get that many. And we got over 1 million. And we didn't have the facilities, we didn't have the porta potties, we didn't have the sound for people to hear, and yet it was beautiful. It was a beautiful crowd of people.
They created their own tea parties within that crowd.
When we come back, I have to take a quick break, but when we come back, I want to ask you this, because I heard from somebody when I was out on the road here a couple of weeks. One of my staff members happened to talk to a 9/12 party member, and they said, Glenn has got to get involved. He's got to, lead. And my staff member said, well, but Glenn's not taking a leadership role. It's not what he's doing. They say, yeah, but we don't know what we're doing. When we come back, I just want to know, do any of you know what you're doing? Because I think this is kind of, we all come from we're just citizens. I don't think anybody in America except the left are real activists. We'll be back in just a second.